The action of shaming somebody is not the same action of feeling shame. So my therapist always said, guilt is when you've betrayed your own values, and shame is when you've betrayed the expectation of your community. You personally feeling shame could be a good thing. The community shaming you is often a bad thing, because what is the action you are taking to shame people versus saying you should feel ashamed is not me shaming you. It's me saying, hey, where's your internal compass? Where is your learned values that tells you what I'm doing is shameful, right? So you being ashamed is good if it's appropriate. The community making you feel shame for being gay or being who you are, or existing in, like, that's not the same thing. So society has the audacity and the arrogance to think it's good at shaming people, but it's not. It's exactly the same thing Republicans are doing right now, is they're using shame tactics to make people feel bad for simply existing as they are. And then they're twisting the narrative using shame to say, and they're signaling to their in-group, like, you don't want to be like these people, right? You don't want to be like the LGBTQIAs, right? Like, they're gross and they're predatory and they're evil, as this administration literally protects predators. And so again, like, you can't shame a predator into being a good person. So shame isn't going to work, right? You can only hope that the predator feels shame. And so, like, when we have these conversations about the differences between shame and guilt, right? It requires a person to know the difference between what they personally believe is wrong or right, morals, guilt, when they betray their morals, guilt, and the expectation of the culture they're in, their society they're in. Like, when you guys sit there and say, Brittany, isn't this your value? Then why are you doing this? And I actually don't have an answer. I'm like, oh, you're right. Hold on, I think I do feel a little ashamed or embarrassed that I didn't pick that up. Let me change. And then that way I don't have to feel shame again, and it works within my values, so now I don't feel guilt either. Like, the idea is, like, guilt and shame aren't bad things for you to individually feel, but it's usually wrong when society weaponizes them against each other. It doesn't ever usually come from a good place from the societal's perspective. And this actually transitions us into this next conversation I want to have about introspection, extrospection, and how fixing one thing in your life doesn't fix everything else. And I want to use two people's stories. I want to use this gentleman here, and then I want to use this woman here. This is a formerly Mormon / I think she was Mormon or Christian. Mormon? I think she was Mormon. Life Take Two. Do you guys know this content channel? I actually don't follow her work very much, but this video really, really sang to me. I watched it myself. And then this gentleman's video here is very, very important. Transitioning didn't make me happy. And I want to talk about that. So let me pull it up. Okay. And the premise of just what you're about to walk into is, just because you've done the work in one section of your life doesn't mean that the work's over. And just because you've got better money, or you transitioned, or you left Christianity and deconstructed, does not mean everything else in your life is fixed. Okay. So let's talk about this using this TikTok first.
Transitioning didn't make me happy. And it will never make me happy, because gender transition was never about finding a cheat code to happiness. It was about removing overwhelming, distracting physical discomfort and finally getting my mind, body, and spirit into alignment in this one life that I have to live. And now that I have removed that barrier, I am overwhelmed by all the work that I have to do. And even though I'm overwhelmed, that feeling makes me happy, because it's telling me that I want better for myself, that I actually believe I deserve to live a better life. So if you are starting to transition, you feel like your transition is complete and you're left with what's next, congratulations. You're ready to frickin' live. Let's go.
I think he's so right here, because I do think we forget that transitioning or accepting that you're gay or LGBTQIA is a default expectation for heterosexual people. Like, straight people, cisgendered people, they don't have to go through this, and then they get to, like, they just start their life next. But a lot of gay people, a lot of queer people, we have to first accept this very foundational part of ourselves, and then our life starts. So we start to feel like, oh my God, I accepted I'm gay. I live in a gay community. Why aren't I happy? And it's like, oh, because now you're just starting at the beginning again. with something you shouldn't even had to have worried about. And now the journey starts. So now being a whole human being starts. Now talking about your money and your finances and your career starts. And that's why it's so difficult, because there is this assumption. We're raised with this assumption. I think it's well-meaning, genuinely, from society, that like you think once you accept your gender, you accept your orientation, like everything will fall into place. But like, that's just because society isn't typically very philosophical in that sense. Like, it doesn't actually understand why it was so hard being LGBT in in the world that we exist in. So they just kind of take it for granted. Now, I think this plays into this video here from, let me get her username again, Life Take Two. And she's reviewing the podcast I've Had It. And you guys know I tried to watch I've Had It and I just couldn't. I felt they were unnecessarily mean. I felt like they were unnecessarily unethical. I felt like they were unnecessarily bully. And it really spoke to me, this video. I did pre-watch it, about why it stood out to me. And it's because I come from a conservative background and I know what conservatives are like. And I just think this woman here said it so perfectly. So I want to watch her video with you and deconstruct it in real time, take it apart, understand it deeper. And I want you guys to know that even though I don't love I've Had It, I don't wish any ill will on these ladies. And I know that they're playing their role that they're supposed to play. I also just wish we didn't need a role in society. And I don't think we really do. I think it's cope that we say we do, but that there is a role for like dark woke or bullying people or calling people slurs. Like, there were literally people in my chat the other day saying it's okay to call women slurs if they're Republicans. It's like, no, that's not okay. And it just sounds okay because your hands are tied and you don't have the wisdom to do anything else. But when you have the wisdom to do something else, it seems really, really silly that like that's our only solution, right? Okay, so let's check this out.
With I've Had It. I just unfollowed the I've Had It podcast.
Wait.
I've Had It with I've Had It. I just unfollowed the I've Had It podcast recently, which is a podcast that I have enjoyed for so long. I watch it so often that Jen and Pumps actually feel like they're my personal friends. And I'm almost feeling like a void not having their episodes as part of my day. And it wasn't because I disagree with their politics or what they want to happen in the world. It's because I realized that I was using their content to feed the same part of my brain that MAGA and the Mormon Church and
Oh, wait, Chet says, I suggested your channel actually to her in the comments underneath this video. Underneath this video? Shut up. That's so funny. I really did watch this video and I was like, oh, there's something, growing up conservative in the bubble that I did is just such a specific experience. And I feel like she gets a big part of it.
my whole alt-right life used to do. I'm Jenna Gage and this is Life Take Two. Yes, I know that there's a rat in the background. His name is Fernius Maximus. So about a month ago, I had a real life crisis where I was just under so much stress and anxiety. And I guess the overall feeling that I had was that nothing was right in the world. Every single day, I just felt this physical and neurological sense of angst. And I realized that because I create so much political content here on my platform, and because I had to know what Donald Trump and MAGA was doing every single day, I was watching Fox News every day for 6 months. I have another video on that where I talk about how that pushed me over the edge. After posting that video, I took a 14-day hard sabbatical. My family and I went on a road trip where we did end up right inside of the summer camp for billionaires. As part of this time away, I didn't watch any news. I didn't listen to any podcasts. I had mostly entertaining books with a couple of exceptions. And I think that whenever you get time away like that, you start to have perspective that you don't when you're in the hot middle of things, right? So now I'm back home. I get back into my regular routine. A big part of my regular routine is watching the I've Had It podcast every single day. And I unsubscribed on day one. Their homeschool episode made me realize that I am utterly exhausted by a style of content that's built entirely on outrage. And now I'm not saying everyone should calm down and stop talking about things. We're going to be just fine. That's not what I'm saying at all. Everyone should be freaked out about the state of our country. Here's what I am saying. I grew up in outrage. I lived in a community where everybody but us was always the enemy, and we could say or do about other people whatever we wanted to because we were fully justified. I left Mormonism, MAGA, a monster of an ex-husband who is a cult of one. I know exactly how emotionally satisfying it is to hate the other. And I'm sick of it. And I think we should all stop being assholes. Remember when President Trump was on that plane and he addressed that journalist and called her piggy? And we on the left were also outraged by that. Like, oh my God, how dare he call somebody piggy? Well, if we all have such a problem with what Donald Trump is doing, then why are we supporting and doing the same exact thing. In this recent episode of the I've Had It podcast, Jenna's just talking about a doctor's appointment, and there's like 14 chairs in the waiting room, and another woman comes in and checks in and sits down right next to her. So I understand if you're in a doctor's office, yeah, I don't want people next to me. I always try to sit as far away from everybody that I can, because I don't know what viruses they're going to pass on to me should they happen to sneeze in my direction. So I understand that. But then her and Pumps ruthlessly, publicly berate and demean this woman. Let me play just a little bit of a clip. And this is so hard for me to hear that I thought about not even playing it, but I think it's important.
So it wasn't like she decided, oh, she's interesting, I'm going to talk to her. This
No,
was
she's just a fucking freak sabotager
freak.
who just thought, I think I'm going to fuck with this lady today. Which a part of me, I'm kind of like, like I'm at the stage where I'm just like in the fascist takeover where not that much stuff surprises me. But this really, it really surprised me. I just couldn't believe she sat down right next to me.
No, I cannot believe that.
How is Donald Trump calling somebody piggy any worse than what Jen just said about just a random woman in a medical office? And all I could think when I was listening to this bit of their podcast was, I don't know that that woman doesn't have dementia. Maybe that woman didn't have her glasses on and literally didn't see that there were extra chairs there. And to me as a content creator, I'm always very sensitive about the way that my videos are going to land on other people. I can't help but think, what if this human being who just happened to be at a doctor's office next to Jen hears this episode and hears them talking about her like that? What's that going to do to her mental health? I'll tell you,
Okay, let's pause and move through this. So I also had to stop watching their podcast because it was so negative. And one of the greatest compliments I get from you guys on both of my channels is, Brittany, thank you for leaving me with so much hope at the end. Or, oh my God, Brittany, thank you for that last message. Or, I try really hard to make sure that when we talk about these very heavy topics, I leave you hopefully feeling like there is hope, because I just know how important it is. And I just, every time I would listen to their podcast, or I get it, because I love to listen to the girlies, I was like, oh, I just feel so hopeless. And also it is very immature. It's very mean girl. It's very immature. It's just very not good. And so chat says, you give us stream aftercare. Hey girl, I'm trying, I'm trying. But that's why I stopped watching them as well, because we were, for a time, I was like, oh my God, I really like listening to the girl. And then it was just so negative. Okay. Now, there is a fine line. Chat says there's a discourse happening in my chat right now, just like, oh, I stopped watching the news and I felt more regulated, right? And then someone said, well, I do recognize we all need a break. We should take the time. We should take the time. We are so privileged to take a break. People in Palestine, or what's left of them, don't have that privilege. So it's a balance. If you stop watching the news, but you show up at your local community and feed people, I don't really think it matters. I only think it matters if you stop doing anything, right? If you don't watch the news, but you wake up every day and clean up your streets and show up at protests and do something, you don't have to literally watch the news. You can get your access to information in so many other ways. Like if chat says they stopped watching the news, but they also watch my stream, they're still getting the news. Like, if you say you stopped watching the news, but you watch us on Piker, you're still getting the news. If you say you stopped watching the news, but you read newspapers, you're still getting the news. Yes, when I say I stopped watching the news, guys, I need you to hear me when I say this. When I say I stopped watching the news, I used to grow up in a household where Fox News was on all the time, where talk radio was on all the time, where EWTN was on all the time. When I say I used to watch the news, I would have CNN on in the background, and I would switch between Fox News and CNN and have the news going. I would have NPR. I would literally have the news on 24/7. Okay? And I'm not even kidding you. And then you're like, what am I doing with my life? My job isn't in the news. I'm not a news journalist. I'm not a reporter. This is what I'm saying. We all started to believe we were all individual journalists. So we all need to individually keep up. You need to keep up enough to help your community. And we need to rely on people, because this is community effort. We need to rely on enough people to pay attention to the news to give us the information. And they also, heads up, deserve a break. Okay? So again, we don't want to live in a world where we say, oh, we're privileged enough to turn off the news, but then we forget that nobody should be so unprivileged that they have to keep it on all the time. We don't want more people to suffer with us. We want those people to help liberate us out of suffering. So, yes, it's a privilege to not listen to the news, but also if listening to the news 24/7 creates a circumstance where you kill yourself, or creates a circumstance where you have no hope, or creates a circumstance where you end up not leaving the house because you're agoraphobic, what good is listening to the news? You know what I mean? Again, there has to be a balance between, is this helping me in my community? And if not, change. Okay, that's it. If it is not helping your community, do something else. Not everybody can listen to it every day. Not everybody can consume it. It doesn't make sense. Okay, it just doesn't make sense. That's not to say that you should have the humility to recognize if you absolutely tune out from the news, absolutely tune out from the distraction. If you're the kind of person who's like, wait, there's a genocide happening in Palestine. Okay, well, maybe you should watch the news a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like, maybe we should turn on the news on occasion. But like, if you're a person who knows it's happening, you're doing your work, you're raising money, you're showing up for your community, you're waving the Palestinian flag, like, okay, what do you need to watch the videos for over and over again? Like, you know what's happening. But if you're a person who's like, what genocide? Who? When? Okay, maybe you should turn on the news. Okay, that's how I would think about that, you know? Okay, let's see. Chat says, Brittany, I know you're right. It's hard to be the bigger, mature person because some people are adjusting and it's easy just to call them hurtful names, even though it's not right. But it feels good. Do not. This is why I say we're all humans on the planet. You think it doesn't feel good for me? Like, oh, you don't think, you know what I do? I turn off stream and I vent it out to my, to my partner, and then my partner validates me and I go, whew, thank goodness I didn't talk that way on stream, because honestly, I gotta be a bigger person, but the feelings are there because the frustration is palatable. Okay, so like write it in a journal, girls. Write it in a fucking journal because children are watching you. And this is what I'm saying. The same rhetoric that lets Andrew Tate and the right bully people is the same rhetoric that do not worry is not, I'm sorry. Oh my God, I can't believe I just said do not worry. I love Anthony. That was not about Anthony. I am so sorry to my Assyrian cousin. Not do not worry podcast. I don't know why I said that. I've had a podcast. That's the same problem of I've had it, is that they have had it. But the problem is that they are using negative rhetoric to feel cathartic, like it's a catharsis. And I'm not saying that catharsis is wrong. I'm saying I understand we're so frustrated. You think we don't want to sit there and rip people apart? And actually, you know what? Speaking of Anthony, you know what I love about Anthony? Is he calls himself out, because he, out of all people in Lebanon, has every reason to call everybody all kinds of names. And he does pull his punches. I see him making an active effort to be very kind and go, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that. And it's very hard, right? He does try to pull back. He's not perfect. I'm not perfect. You will see me do it too. I will do it. I'm like, you know what? My bad. And like, that's what I'm saying. We're people on a planet. So if I've had it, could do that more, if I could see that more. But no, they're name calling, them giving everybody nicknames, them using basically like a lot of it ends up being dark woke, which ends up being racist and ableist, and just like Kyle Kalinske. And it's like, what good is this? So again, or here's the philosophical question. Here's the moral ethical question. Do we show up in society as our ideal versions, or do we show up in reaction to society? Are we going to be real life reactionaries? People who just react, people who like, are we going to be the culture war conservatives only on the left? God, I hope not. Or are we going to show up in a society doing the right thing if nobody else is doing it? Because I know people feel like, Brittany, nobody else is doing the good thing though, so why should I? Because it's the right thing. It's the subjective right thing. And I am trying to show up. I think we should show up doing the right thing no matter what, even if nobody else is doing it. And accept that sometimes we will not be our perfect selves because we can't be perfect. Okay, but that's my positioning. A lot of people don't feel that way. A lot of people feel like, fuck it, the world is melting. I'm not going to go down without a fight. I just feel like your version of fighting and my version of fighting, I'm angry for the world, and it feels like you're angry at the world. And I'm just saying, like, school shooters are angry at the world, and people who feed their communities are angry for the world. Okay? Back to her.
Listen to back-to-back episodes of Glenn Beck, who I absolutely despise.
Fun fact, I've met him. That's what I'm saying, girl. I was in the bubble. I have hugged Glenn Beck. We have pressed bodies up against each other. I was in the bubble as a child / young adult. Okay? Out of all the people in the world who knows exactly what she's talking about,
with a little bit of Charlie Kirk and Tyler Bowman for a video that I'm putting together. And they were actually nicer and a little bit more respectful of other people than that episode of the I've Had It podcast. So I just unfollowed the podcast, and it feels very unfeminist of me not to be supporting two of the biggest voices in this space. But I'm personally looking for a version of feminism that isn't just about hating the right people and being really funny about the way that we hate them, but about building a better world, building a life of substance outside of patriarchal control, where I'm not just pissed all the time. And this is where my internal conflict comes in, because as a feminist, it feels like we need to join together with everybody else who's out there fighting for our cause. According to YouTube's data, a huge majority of my audience also follows the I've Had
Yep,
It podcast.
I
Of course
believe
you do,
it.
because on paper, it looks like I should absolutely love Jen and Pumps. We're feminists, we're Democrats, we hate Donald Trump and Don Jr. and Pete Hegseth.
Ooh, I think this is the philosophical difference for a lot of us. Puppy Cat, welcome to memberships. Happy to have you here. Is that I don't hate Donald Trump. I know I used to hate people. Like I used to hate people like Donald Trump, but I don't hate Donald Trump. I'm not saying I'm a better person because of that, but I'm saying the burden and weight of carrying hate around for me was destroying my mental health. I was much more suicidal because I hated the world than when I learned to stop hating the world. It also coincided with me not feeling suicidal because, and I covered this in my last commentary video on Bert Simon, that's my second channel, is I wanted to kill myself because the world was so shitty. And when I stopped carrying the burden of how shitty the world was, as if it was, I stopped letting the shittiness of the world decide if I should kill myself, you know? So for me personally, holding hatred in my heart, as they say, just was not going to help me. And so I had to let it go. But I understand that for a time, it really gave me some foundation and it allowed me to cope through some of the worst times in my life. But eventually it became the reason that I was stopping myself from living, like liberating my own spirit. So, you know.
And we're not super sad to see Lindsey Graham pass away. We all believe women should have control of their own bodies. We are all alarmed by the rise of Christian nationalism. We have so much in common, but I have had it with the dehumanization. And as a woman who was taught that one of my greatest values was compliance, I refuse to let a podcast, even one that shares my politics and other general ideology, to own my emotional state and to leave me every single day in such a state of just anger. Real liberation isn't just about having the right opinions, having the right politics, wanting the right things for everybody. It's about having a mind that belongs to me and ruthlessly protecting my inner peace. And like I say, the recent tirade against homeschooling was the straw that broke the camel's back for me during the segment, which I'm not going to play for you because I think that it's offensive to people who homeschool. Homeschooling was called trickle-down stupidity.
I do want to talk about this because I was homeschooled till I was 15 and there was a lot of negatives to it. So many negatives, some positives. And I was homeschooled in a group. So I was a part of a homeschool collective and I went to do classes with them multiple times a week. And we had field trips and I had lots of friends and it was a K through 12 program. So I had friends of all ages, all types of people. You know, it meant that we were also all together. So some of the good parts of my homeschooling collective were, that we were all Catholic. So that was kind of nice in a sense because we were all at least starting off on some foundational point. Just stay with me here. 2, that we were all friends together. So even if our classmates were disabled or insert difference here, it didn't even matter because we were all in the same class together. Like nobody was separated. There wasn't like a class for special education. We were all in the same class. And so we were all friends. We were all together. Nobody felt alienated. Like nobody was taken away into a different class. People were also like considered for their neurodivergence in different ways where the parents I was homeschooling with, I think sort of embraced that their children were learning differently. And so some of the parents who were better equipped actually it became a benefit to those neurodivergent kids. Not always, not for me personally. I think my neurodivergence was like pushed under a rug and I was sort of neglected and I was one of the kids who kind of like barely survived schooling. It also happened to be in public school where like no teacher caught on to the fact that I needed special care because of the way that I present and because of the way that I exist. People just assumed like, oh, she can't pass a single test. She must just have an attitude instead of like, bro, I don't know how to test. I'm telling you right now. And this is actually a part of my autism diagnosis. They made me take like so many fucking tests. And he sat there and he's like, the way you answer questions on a test is one of the examples of your autism. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That's been a struggle my whole life. But nobody had the ability to see it, but nobody saw it in public school and no one saw it in homeschooling. So I just want to say I was like neglected either way, you know what I mean? But I would say that the homeschooling that I'm the most concerned about is the homeschooling that alienates children, alienates the parents, the type of homeschooling that also is surrounded by other parents who are alienating their kids from the world. And obviously past the extreme cases of homeschooling, I'm just a little concerned that all children in the United States are not getting the schooling that they most desperately need. We know this with funding being districted and other communities being neglected as well. It's not just homeschooling kids. Like, our children en masse are like deeply neglected. And this is why I would love to center all of our work on children. Notice that some of the loudest voices in activism in our communities are not advocating for kids. We're advocating for the right for parents to exist with children, but we're not advocating for those children to exist in the same way. Like, we're advocating, but like loosely, we're not thinking about them as the center. And so I would recommend we kind of like change in that regard. But I would say that homeschooling generally is not great. I do believe that, but only because, right? And I would say that I'm not excited over the public school system, but still, and I would not necessarily send my kid to a private school, but I get it, so like, we've got a lot of work to do is what I'm trying to say, but I'm not the biggest fan of homeschooling communities because the parents just don't normally have the education and they just don't normally have the community to give the kids exactly the care that they need.
MAGA on steroids, part of a fundamental crazy Christian problem.
Okay, hold on. So they're talking about homeschooling.
During the segment, which I'm not going to play for you because I think that it's offensive to people who homeschool. Homeschooling was called trickle-down stupidity, MAGA on steroids, part of a fundamental crazy Christian problem, and even child abuse. When they called homeschooling parents in that episode stupid,
I think it could be all of those things, to be fair.
Religious freaks, they weren't attacking any policy. They were attacking other women and children.
That is true. Actually, if you remember, like, political commentators forget that they're going after parents. And I understand why they do that. I absolutely get it. And also, why don't we talk about policy? I think this is an important point.
Many of whom are just trying to protect their kids the best that they can in a broken system. It's easy to dismiss this as just one bad episode. But as I really looked closer, I realized the homeschooling rant wasn't an outlier. It's the formula, and it's the same formula used by Fox News and Charlie Kirk and Glenn Beck and everybody else, which is the same formula that I personally have spent almost a decade now trying to escape. So I just found myself asking, what the hell?
This is important, and I agree with her. So I don't agree with everything she's saying. I'm sure we're coming from different perspectives, but that particular perspective is actually one that I do agree with. It's actually why I'm the content creator that I am, because I used to be that person. I used to want to make content that was just about, like, combating and being the opposite. And then I was like, I am not serving myself or my community. It feels really good. It gets really popular. It's what people want. But the reason I shut down people in my comments right away when they're like, conservatives are all fucking stupid. It's like, okay, I have to shut you down. Conservatives aren't stupid, but they are hard-headed, which is a form of stupidity, maybe. And yes, I agree with when we're feeling like a need to generalize, I'm here with you. And also, they don't have to be stupid to be bigoted. And also, so it's like a balance. But I would feel like I was adding more evil to the world, philosophical evil to the world, if my platform was just every day talking shit on Republicans. Like, it's like those people on Twitter who became very famous during lockdown and their whole personality became attacking Republicans on Twitter, and they got millions of viewers and they started getting sponsorships. It's like embarrassing. What an embarrassing, in my opinion, way to be the adult in the room. Like, oh, what does your mom and dad do for a living? Oh, they yell at people on Twitter about being Republicans. Okay, are they like feeding their community, working with coalition? And they're like, oh, no. And I'm like, okay, I guess, like, whatever.
What am I doing listening to this? Now, I understand some of the criticism around homeschool.
Hold on. Chat said, respectfully understand her point, but equating Jennifer Welch to Fox News is wrong, very wrong. I'm gonna go pretty hard on people just about this, guys, because everybody does it, but your inability to understand comparisons is fucking ruining the world. With peace and love, don't worry. I even yelled at my siblings the other day about this as well. I beg you, I'm begging you, from the bottom of my fiber, learn what a comparison is. Learn and hear her. She is not saying Jennifer is Fox News. That's not what she's saying. And I don't know what mode of learning this is. I don't know what class we all need to take to understand how comparisons work, but that's not what she's saying. She's saying the tactics and frameworks used, which is not the same thing. And it's absolutely ruining the fucking world that we are not able to understand how comparisons work. Okay? So I don't know what class we need to take, but we got to do something about that. Okay? She's making a very salient point. She's making a point about angerness and bitterness and name calling, all of those things which exist equal Okay, Fox News, that's their whole thing. That's I've had its whole thing. That's why I stopped watching. It's all about name calling and talking down to and being ruthless and mean girl. And I'm over it. I'm literally over it. And I'm saying because it reminds me of Fox News, because that's their framework. I agree with her on this.
And full disclosure, I am not in support of homeschooling the way that we have it today. I do think that there needs to be some more regulations, some more oversight, etc. I homeschooled my kids for about 1 month in the middle of a move, and it was actually stunning to me that there were no requirements of like testing or even like reporting how much time we were spending of anything. So in that 1 month during a family relocation, when I saw behind the curtain of homeschooling, I was a little bit stunned, thinking, wow, it would be really easy for kids to fall through the cracks. So full disclosure, that's my bias.
Also, reminder that I was homeschooled till I was 15. Then I went to public school. Then I got bullied out of high school and I went back to independent study. So reminder that I had to petition my right for independent study from the principal's office. My mother had to come with me and I begged the principal. I was like, I am being so severely bullied in school. You've got to let me independent study. I'm over it. I've done it. So a reminder that that was a form of homeschooling. They would send me home with a packet at home, and once a week I would go to the independent study until I finished my schooling. So it was a life changing. It saved my life to go back to independent study. So just a reminder, homeschooling, independent study. Independent study was through the public school system, to be fair. So I do see a distinction there, and I think that's important. And I think if homeschooling was more like independent study, it would be way better. If there was like a body keeping your kids on track for graduation, it could be like that, you know? So just FYI.
I personally do think that we do need an overhaul. And I realize, because I come from this community, that there are absolutely fundamentalist Christian parents who homeschool their children specifically to control the information that they receive. There are children right now being taught creationism instead of science, and people using the isolation of homeschooling to prevent their children from encountering people of different religions, Mexicans, different political ideas, lesbians. Some of my
I'm sorry, the line on Mexicans was so funny to me.
encountering people of different religions, Mexicans.
I don't know why she said Mexicans right there. People of different religions, Mexicans. Shout out to the Mexicans. I don't know. I just thought that was so funny. I don't know why she said Mexicans. And that maybe she meant it because of ICE raids or something. She was thinking about ICE raids, and she was thinking about how people aren't hanging out with Mexicans, and so they don't understand that ICE raids are serious. You know, and then she said lesbians. And so I think she was probably thinking about ICE, maybe. I don't know. I thought that was funny.
Different political ideas, lesbians. Some of my old friends,
lesbians
inside MAGA, definitely homeschool their kids for nefarious purposes. And yes, we should be talking about educational neglect and the lack of oversight in many states. And we should be protecting children from abuse and making sure that every child has a real education. But that wasn't what this podcast episode was at all. It wasn't a serious discussion about policy, children's rights, or educational standards. It was a middle school rant about how homeschooling parents are stupid, selfish, religious freaks who apparently cannot tolerate being away from their children. I'm personally done pretending that dehumanization becomes holy and enlightened when other feminists and other Democrats do it. I feel this pressure a lot here on my channel. My audience wants me to be angry, to be fuming, and like one step away from committing violence at all times. I post a photo from my vacation of me next to the founder of JetBlue, and enraged maniacs email me and rip me apart on Reddit for being a psycho. And that is psychotic. The conservative manosphere, the patriarchy, all these guys over at Fox News, they are these enraged idiots. So we want Jenny to be like that too. Why do I have to lean into the same horrible tactics that the patriarchy uses? As for homeschoolers are not all one type of person. Some are Christian fundamentalists, some are atheists. Some homeschool because their children are autistic, are medically vulnerable, are bullied, or in other ways unable to function in a traditional classroom. But you can strongly support public education, and I do, without bullying millions of homeschooling parents and their children. For the 6 months that I watched Fox News every day so that I could bring content to you guys about MAGA and Pete Hegseth and Christian nationalism and all that stuff that I come from, I really keyed in on what their formula is. There's a specific recipe. There's always somebody you're supposed to hate, always. Immigrants, trans people, feminists, commies, that's a word that they use a lot over there on Fox News. Some new enemy was destroying America every single day. You turned on the TV, received your villain assignment for the day, and spent the next few hours feeling pissed off, really terrified, and morally superior. Then you came back the next day to find out who you were supposed to hate next. And lately...
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And look, I know, listen, we are talking about real people's lives. Everything we're saying is important and intimate and sensitive. And look, no matter where you're coming from in life, guys, these are such serious topics. Like, it keeps us tense and our defenses are up. And I just want us to all remember that this is why it can be stressful. This goes back to watching the news. I mean, everything is so real. And so I just want us to be really kind and compassionate. And I, you know, I see how my community does such a good job at like moving through topics and moving through sensitive topics. And I want to give credit to my community for doing those things, you know, whether it's on the Discord or wherever it happens. Like, I know sometimes it gets heated, but I just want to remind us that like we are talking about such intense topics that there is naturally going to be a lot of tension. And so, you know, just to keep that in mind, and this is why we say it's okay to take breaks. And this is why we say it's okay to not answer every time you're tagged in a post, as an example, or to take a break from even a thing that's supposed to be fun. Actually, not to derail, but I think it kind of plays into these topics. When I was younger and I was bullied out of high school, it was terrible. It was like a terrible experience. I ended up friendless for a while, and I was calling into talk radio, and I was calling into conservative talk show hosts, you know, and talking about politics, cringe, oh my God. And, you know, as a teenager, I was calling into Radio Disney and winning skateboards and backpacks, Dragon Ball Z, by the way. And so when I was an adult, I was working and I was calling into radio shows. I became friends with somebody who worked on a radio show. That's how I met Glenn Beck. And I became friends with her, and that friendship ended up in smoke, but okay. We became friends, and then she asked me to come hang out at a gathering of friends who know friends for libertarians, conservatives, and liberals. And I was like, yeah, I want to go to that. And I showed up, and it was my first adult group out of high school, and we were all political and all debate bros. And it was wild. It was a wild time. And the gay people in the group were like, Brittany, I can't believe you're a log cabin Republican. That's disgusting. And I'm like, what? And then they were liberal, they were Democrats. And then there was like the libertarian Christians. And then there was like the Republican Christians. And we would all debate. We'd go to places around San Diego. And I actually ended up having one of my longest, closest inner circle friendships from that group. But everyone else, we didn't stay in contact because eventually we outgrew a lot of our circumstance, like we outgrew our Republican days. We outgrew our partying and talking. You know, we just outgrew it. So me and this friend ended up pulling off. We're still friends to this day. We're very close. She's like my sister. And we are so progressive. Like, we're so left leaning now that if we went back to that time in that group and looked at ourselves, we'd be like, oh my God, like, what was that? And like, it was a long time ago. I was 21 then. 21. I was 20 and 21. I think I got my first, maybe it was around 19, 20, 21, like that era of my life. So what I think I was trying to figure out, what I was looking for, was a community that would have deep and thoughtful conversations and that we would solve problems. But I think what I learned is that you don't actually solve problems in the way that you think. So even this space here in this YouTube channel, or even my Discord, I think there's still this idea that we're going to solve problems, but I would recommend instead to think of these spaces as places you go to gather tools to take home to solve problems. So YouTube isn't where you solve the problems. I've Had It is not where you solve the problems. It's where you go to gather tools to go home and solve your problems. And what I've Had It did over some time is what I realized it was a place where they didn't have any tools to give me. I was like, oh, I know all this. I'm good, right? So instead of thinking of the YouTube channels as your community, which it is still, in the same way that the city you live in is your community, even if you don't see everybody in it every day, right? The Discord is a community, the YouTube channel, they're all communities, but they're not the community you go home to. Because you're going to go home. You're going to turn off your computer. You're going to drive to your house. You're going to live in your neighborhood, right? Like, work is your community, but it's not the community you go to after work, right? Okay. So that's what I'm saying. So when we have these conversations, right? Chad says, I'm so happy past Brittany recovered from debate bro. I was going to say bioessentialism. Recovered from debate broism. Bro, let me just tell you, I'm in recovery, because every part of me was like, I could out debate these debate bros. And I'm like, sit down, Brittany, you don't want to be a debate bro. But like, sometimes I'm like, give me a hit. I love a debate. You're right, though. I'm glad that I'm not in that bubble anymore. My life is so much better. But you know what tools I did gather from the debate bro bubble? Was the opportunity of observation, because holy fuck, was there so much to observe. But yeah, I outgrew the tools. There were no tools there anymore. And that's what I want you to recognize with all of these spaces, is like, we're gathering tools to take home to our communities, like our personal, intimate communities, you know?
When I watch other feminist and progressive content, like the I've Had It podcast, I leave feeling the exact same way. Not because their facts or values are identical to Fox, but because they are using the exact same recipe. And here's the thing that I couldn't ignore. I was leaving their podcast with the exact same emotional state as I was watching Fox News. Tense, agitated, disgusted, looking for an enemy, certain that everybody on the other side was either evil or just terminally stupid. And I don't want to live like that anymore. I left MAGA, I left Mormonism so that I could have peace in my life. I left these systems that trained me to divide all of humanity into two groups, the righteous and the wicked. I didn't go through all that to join another community that hands me a new list of people that I'm supposed to hate, including people who just sit too close to me in a doctor's office waiting room. I'm going to save my hate for people who are actual abusers or psychopaths and are actually harming other people. And even then, the purpose should be stopping the harm and not just building my entire identity around being hateful and angry.
Ding, 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 ding. That's exactly it. It should be about solving problems, not building like the centering of your whole life on being a hater. Like, girl, if social media has taught me anything, is that a hater gets paid. Okay? Get paid, but like doing it, being a full-time hater is crazy work while you're advocating justice for the world. Like being a full-time hater and calling it liberation is absolutely not justice, you know?
Because I know now exactly how scapegoating works. And I know even more after reading Daniela's book, The Culting of America. She is going to be on my podcast next week. If you have any questions for her, drop those in the comments. Here's another clip from the podcast where they read a comment from a woman who's another frequent listener and listen to why she's listening to the podcast.
Another comment is from Erin, and she says, I need 3-hour-long episodes of just Jen and Pumps making fun of Republicans so that I can get through my workday. Love laughing to these ladies as I disassociate from the craziness that is our.
Listen to that. Love laughing to these ladies as I disassociate from the craziness that is our current state of affairs.
Current state of affairs.
Daniela and I are both cult babies. So we understand scapegoating. This woman is listening to the podcast so that she can scapegoat because there's problems going on in the world and she listens to I've Had It and she realizes, oh, all of these bad guys are causing these problems. So just being in that space of anger makes her feel somehow just a little bit better so she can get through her day. Take it from a cult baby. Scapegoating feels like action. It feels productive to identify the bad people. It feels really courageous to mock them and call them names, to talk about how little their weenies are. It feels revolutionary to sit in front of a
Ding, 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 ding. The body shaming, saying how small their weenies are. First of all, what's wrong with a small weenie? Second of all, what? That's what I'm saying. I can't listen to this stuff. I can't turn on my news or my YouTubers and listen to them body shame people. I'm so tired. I don't need to listen to you mock somebody in that way. Like even my Andrew Tate, somebody in the comment section said, thank you for the way you reacted to Andrew Tate's fit. Because I was like, I love a man in capris. Like, did he dress himself well that day? But not really. But like, it's not because of his fit. It's because he didn't coordinate correctly. Long sleeve shirt with shorts. It just didn't make sense, Andrew. So like, the point is like, a lot of people are shaming Andrew Tate for wearing capris. And I'm saying, no. The capris are fine. It's just the shoes, the capris, the shirt. It's just, it just makes sense. But I'm not sitting here advocating for men to wear dresses so you can make fun of Andrew Tate for wearing capris. Everybody should be able to dress how they want, and it shouldn't matter. So going after Andrew Tate for wearing capris makes no fucking sense. Okay, I get you want to mock him because he's claiming to be the example of masculinity, but why can't you be masculine and wear capris? Make that make sense. You know what I mean? So again, I appreciate that comment, whoever that was, to say thank you so much for not making. Of course, girl, I love a man in capris.
Screen and listen to someone say every vicious thing that you've been thinking. You leave an angry comment and call somebody stupid while your heart pounds in your chest and your side applauds because you're so ballsy. For a few minutes, you feel powerful, but what actually changed? Did a child receive a better education because of this podcast episode? Did a woman get affordable health care? Did a family get housing? Did Congress pass anything? Did we build an organization, register voters, attend a school board meeting, help someone understand an issue, change a law? Or did we simply help another media personality make money by keeping us pissed off? Because outrage is extremely profitable. And if I was more of an asshole on my channel, I would make a lot more money. My mean videos, especially if I'm calling somebody who's like an accepted villain mean names and a really snarky tone of voice, they always get the most views and they always make the most money. The nicer I am, the less people tune in. But let me tell you, it does not matter whether the person monetizing hate is wearing a red hat or holding a rainbow coffee mug. The formula is the same. The business model is the same. Keep people angry and afraid.
I think we're forgetting that at the end of the day, it is a business model. They're taking sponsorships, they're working with people, they're collaborating with other creators, they're getting bigger. Like, it's not on accident that I've Had It is popular. And I want to give credit and flowers to those ladies for finding a space here, sharing their personal stories, talking about being in the Bible Belt, for being vulnerable with the internet. And they are still, I think, unlearning a lot of the stuff that they were taught. And I still think they have a ways to go in the same way that we all do.
Keep them watching, keep giving them enemies and calling the enemies mean, creative names that people will remember, and never let the problem be solved, because a solved problem doesn't generate tomorrow's content. And again, I know that some of you are going,
but you know what's crazy is, like, no matter how many of the problems we solve, girlies, we're going to have conflict tomorrow. So I don't even know why you're adding to it. Listen, this is the philosophical thing that I say a lot that I think is very important. When we say life is suffering, it doesn't mean that you need to go and cut your arm to learn a lesson. It means you have to accept that you will suffer. So you have to suffer wisely. Like, sitting there and saying, like, I have to suffer to learn. You're not going to learn by purposely cutting off your arm, but if your arm gets cut off, you must learn to suffer wisely. And I think sometimes people cut off their own arm. This is a metaphor. And then they're like, I've got it now. You just cut off your own arm. Like, what are you doing? And what was the purpose? Like, how did that help you? And I just think, like, that is a part of the self-flagellation or the masochism that we've been brought up with. Like, if I hustle, if I work really hard, I'll get rewarded. You can work very hard and not see the benefits of that reward or that hard work. And I feel like people don't know that. So the cope is, I'm going to be angry and I'm going to yell to the void and everyone's going to feel good about it, but then nothing ever gets solved. Trust me when I say this, no matter how many, again, problems I solve, there will be more problems. So don't worry, there's always going to be a problem. Tomorrow, the next day, for the next 1,000 years, we're going to be debating gender politics and who's right and wrong and who was inherently born better and, like, who's the fastest runner. Like, there's always going to be something to talk about. It's just people are afraid of solving problems and they're afraid of having too many. And it's like
to hear this, and you're going to be typing in my comment section, Jenny, we should all be pissed. We should all be angry. I get it, and I am pissed off. My list of things that I'm pissed off about here is so long that I can't even read this all. I'm furious about abortion being illegalized, Trump bulldozing the White House for his stupid fucking ballroom, everything that we're doing over in Iran. I'm furious about Christian nationalists trying to force their religion into our government and public schools. I'm furious about immigrants being dehumanized, LGBTQ people being targeted, and obscenely wealthy people.
Oh, pause. Chatter. I really appreciate you, but sometimes I do wonder what I can say to make you get it. You said, please don't get mad at me. First, I need you to unlearn whatever bubble taught you that that's how you speak. You don't need to apologize to me, because why are you apologizing? Like, when you say that, please don't get mad at me, you're doing this thing that's already like making, like, why would I be mad at you? Don't say that. Stop apologizing. You said, 2, I honestly think it's a business, but anger is a motivator. Think about how Ready to Vote to help change policy the Democrats' bases. Think about how Ready to Vote to help change policy the Democrats' bases. That's why Fox News uses it. You said, I've had it and other pundits acted like, if I've had it and other pundits acted like nothing was wrong, people would feel like, am I just tripping? Why is the option in your brain either we have to be angry or we have to act like nothing's wrong? And when did I say that you can't be angry? When did I say in any of this that you can't be angry? Why does anger in your brain only show up as throwing slurs at people? Why does anger in your brain only show up as being mean and talking down on people? Why would anger only come in the form of abuse? Why can't anger come in the form of justice? Because patriarchy has convinced us that the only good anger in the world is one that demeans. Can't you be angry without being a bully? Can't you be angry without hurting people? Can't you be angry? Like, anger is a really valid emotion. It's incredibly important to be angry. But how you are angry and how you show up being angry matters. So I never said you can't be angry. Be angry. There's so much to be angry about. You can be angry without being a hater. You know what I mean? You can be angry without being an abuser. You are allowed to be angry. Okay? There are so many things that are wrong with the world. Be angry about them. Be angry. And that's why I say be angry for the world. Habibi, why? How? Girl, I said it 10 minutes ago. Being angry at the world, you become a school shooter. You become a bully. Being angry for the world, you feed people. I literally advocate for you to be angry. Just make sure your anger is feeding people. That's her whole point. Is I've Had It's podcast feeding people? Is it helping people? Is it rallying people? Or is it just making people fucking angry?
Purchasing political influence that they do not deserve. I'm not asking anyone to stop caring. I'm asking us to stop confusing emotional intensity.
Look at, she just said it.
Deserve. I'm not asking anyone to stop caring. I'm
not asking anyone to stop caring. Obviously.
asking us to stop confusing emotional intensity with moral courage.
Exactly. This is why debate bros yell louder. Because the debate bro thinks if I yell the loudest, I must be the most right. Right? And she's saying don't confuse emotional loudness or theatrics for movements.
I'm asking us to stop confusing emotional intensity with moral courage. And I don't even want the I've Had It podcast to stop existing. I think that they are a valuable voice. I just wish that they would maybe step away completely from that emotional intensity and lean into that moral integrity. I see this dynamic in my own comment sections every single day. I receive thousands of comments from people who are pissed off that I'm not angry enough. It's not enough for me to explain something. I have to scream it with lots of cuss words. It isn't enough for me to oppose someone's politics. My audience wants me to make sure everyone knows how much I hate that person who is behind that policy. Like, people think I was supposed to tell the CEO of Disney to fuck off to his face when I met him last week.
Okay, let's process this part of the story together. Let's see.
My audience wants me to make sure everyone knows how much I hate that person who is behind that policy. Like, people think
it's interesting because I don't hate anyone, but let's process this together.
I was supposed to tell the CEO of Disney to fuck off to his face when I met him last week up in Sun Valley. Why would I do that? It isn't enough for me to just say someone is wrong. My audience wants me to humiliate them, to destroy them, and to pee on their graves, I guess. Prove that I despise.
Now, I assume she's a capitalist because, like, why are we meeting with the Disney CEO? And also, like, that's where I think she and I differ. Like, I'm years out of my conservative bubble. I'm years out of the capitalist bubble. So I don't know why she's meeting the Disney CEO. Maybe, I don't know why, but I would just say that this is where the difference of where we're at is. I wouldn't be mean to the Disney CEO because I wouldn't be in the same room as them. And I say that as a girly who has a Disney tattoo because I thought I was going to be a Disney girl for life, okay? Trust me. You want to talk about cults? I was in the Disney one. I wasn't in the Disney cult, but I mean, I might have been a Disney adult at one point in my life, girl. Passes and all, okay? But I wouldn't be in the room with the Disney CEO, so... Oh, Chet said it wasn't planned. She made a post the day she met them. It wasn't planned. Oh, interesting.
With the appropriate level of intensity. People in my comments aren't asking, is what Jenny said accurate? They're asking, did she match my rage? And I refuse to build my life around matching anybody's rage.
I think this is important. Chet says, you're right, but to be honest, it feels good to call a terrible person a bad name. It's not mature, but it does everything. But does everything have to be mature? Okay. You can call them bad names. You just shouldn't do it in public where children are watching, other adults are watching, and it angers the mob. You do not want to be the reason the mob hangs somebody in the street because you're all collectively angry. When are we going to recognize that when men get angry and they chase people down the streets and they hang them in the public, it's not a collective misuse of anger? Why are you acting like every mob that walked around with tiki torches and whatever else didn't do that because y'all riled up the mob? What happened on January 6th? They got riled up by their leader and their leader went, oop, not me, I didn't do it. January 6th happened because people got riled up. There was no focus. It wasn't an activism group. It was a mob that was riled up, and look at what they did. Somebody died. And I'm telling you, like, this is the difference between a collective of a group of protesters that gather together with a reason, with structure, with consistency, and they show up for their community. That's way different than an angry mob getting riled up and like storming the Capitol with no fucking, like, they don't even know what they're doing there. Okay? So call people names in private, though you better watch your mouth what name you use, okay? But you can't sit there and come out in the public, be one of the leaders in the movement, and then show up this way. Again, you don't have to call people names in this particular way without also using words that are meant to like jar you or make it clear to you, right? Chet said, so how do we effectively rile the right people up without relying on hatred, on anger? Well, you don't want to rile people up. You never... Riling? Are we misusing the word riling? Rile. You don't ever want to rile people up. Most commonly refers to the... Oh, no, that's a... Hold on. My Google changed it. The word rile is a verb to annoy, irritate, or make someone angry. Yeah, why are we riling people up? Annoy, irritate, vex, provoke. I don't want to rile anybody up. I want to gather people. I'm assuming you mean, yeah, motivate or inspire or gather. Well, I don't know. Ask any movement that's ever done it ever. We've done it a bunch of times. You know what I mean? So yeah, movements have done it. Why are we pretending like BLM didn't do it? Or why are we acting like gay people haven't done it? Or why are we acting like women haven't done it? Like tons of communities have gathered. The No Kings protest just happened. You know what I mean? It's not like people don't protest. Like people do it all the time. We find a way to get people together. You know, it's about priorities and values, of course. So I understand what you're saying. You know, rally. Chat's saying maybe they mean rally, not rile. Yeah, maybe you mean like rally people together. Well, first, you can't force people to do something. They actually have to want to do it. So then you have to get people the tools to like find it interesting, I suppose. Like, do you care about this thing? Do you want to participate in it? Look, I have so many people in my life that I'm trying to use a good example. What's a good example? Like they care, but not enough to read a book, or they care, but not enough not to shop at Starbucks, or like they care, but not enough to do XYZ, which I understand. And yet they will advocate for the right position, but it's not as like they're not there right now because they're trying to figure out how to pay rent. So the dilemma is like people are in survival mode. And so even though they will say like, yeah, I really care, but bro, I literally can't pay my bills right now. That's real. Now, a weird thing about growing up in the US though, is like you are in the superpower. Like you are living in one of the most privileged places, period. Like just having a US passport is a very specific type of privilege that people don't even recognize because you're literally struggling to pay your rent right now. And so you're thinking, what does the privilege of this passport matter if I can't even pay my rent? Absolutely valid. So the dilemma here is that it's multifaceted. This is why I love philosophy, because politics doesn't have an answer for this, but philosophy does. Philosophy says you must radically accept, or at least some philosophy, the world the way that it is, and then you can do something about it. Because we keep living in a world that we don't understand, and we keep like assigning it a prescription that doesn't attach to reality, we can't do anything about it. But I think for me, when I say values are embodied, I mean that you don't get to turn around and call a black ICE agent the N-word because he's a bad person. But there are people who will advocate for that and call themselves good people. In what context is it appropriate to call a black person the N-word because you don't think they're a good person? Now, if other black people, okay, that's not my business. And even that's not my business. But okay, same thing with a girl. Like if a woman wants to call another woman the B word in private because she's expressing anger, that's one thing. But if she actually thinks this woman is a bitch, then that's just misogyny, internalized misogyny. Like if you think this woman is like an evil fucking bitch, like you are just like, you know what I'm saying? And so when we have these conversations, we have to recognize like, what is my relationship to this oppression? What is my relationship to this version of activism? Like, what is my issue to? Because you know what? Here's the thing. You're bringing your issues into politics. And that's why we have a political issue, is we have issues, right? So I think people keep forgetting like your personal trauma, your personal relationship with your parents, your personal life is impacting politics, and politics is absolutely manipulating that part of you. Like Republicans play on your trauma, they play on your bullshit, so you can be convinced that your fear is rational and we should be bigoted. And I've had it does the same thing, but for less malicious reasons. So Republican leaders are malicious in the way that they target their constituents. I do think I've had it has good intentions, but the intentions, like the good intentions are, the road to hell is paved in good intentions. So I've had it is not maliciously trying to make you angry. They're just angry. And they're utilizing anger in an unwise way. But because they're getting all of this social validation, it feels really good. But this is why I say, going back to the Dr. Ball quote of, and I hope I'm not misquoting it here, of you can't be radical, famous, and rich at the same time. You know what I'm saying? These women are popular. These women are rising to more. How are you all of those things? Like truly, and radical, guys, radical, oh, let's do this. Radical is not, hear me out, radical is not extreme. Radical does not mean against the wave. Radical does not mean radical. In the radical liberation is the embodiment and then the action taken to create a world that is radically kind, radically loving, radically liberated. Like, radical is not, I'll give you an example here. Radical is not the idea of taking the most extreme position. It's the radical belief that we deserve to be liberated. So when I say you're not radical, I'm saying, how can you believe we all deserve to be liberated and then you're hanging out with XYZ, you're acting XYZ, you're taking away rights from XYZ? That's what I think about. Look at this TikTok. Have you seen this trend going around? Women who bash feminism should all be sent to Afghanistan. Have you seen that on the internet? That there's these women who are like, every conservative woman should be sent to Afghanistan so they can. Are you fucking crazy?
Like, literally, who wrote that?
It didn't come from me.
I wrote it.
I'm a loose cannon.
Who wrote it? Like, literally, who wrote that?
Okay, so here's the thing. Saying that you want to see women suffer, get murdered and raped because they're conservative is crazy. Right? And I'm saying this cannot be the message, but it sounds pretty good, right? I think I've Had It is very similar in that sense, where they're saying like, oh, you should get a taste of your own medicine. Why would I wish rape and murder on women? How do you think wishing rape and murder on people you don't like is justice? Do you know what I'm saying? So, no, I don't want any of those women anywhere around the world to suffer. And I can see from a very emotional, reductive perspective why that feels like, I hope you get a taste of your own medicine. You know, I get it. I don't. I hope you never, ever get treated the way you've treated other people, because no one deserves to be treated that way. You know, with the Unnecessary Conversation podcast, I disavow. The father, Bob, I think his name is, he was in the hospital. I don't know if he's out now because I have them blocked. But people were like, I hope you get the same treatment you've wished on other people. I don't. I hope you're never treated that way because no one deserves to be treated that way. This is what I'm saying. How can you wish evil on people and say you're fighting for good? It takes a level of maturity, yes, and work and wisdom and humility to stop wishing ill on people. And I know you've been brought up in a world, the conservative world, by the way, you know, we've all been brought up in conservatism, even when you don't think you have, okay? And you have internalized those ideas of white supremacy and patriarchy and capitalism that says dominance and hierarchy are number one. You've internalized that. So then the only way you know how to combat your oppressors is to wish evil on them. Is to wish ill on them. And I'm saying, so then they turn around and go, oh, see, you are just like me. Yeah. So you agree. When Kyle Klinsky uses slurs against his oppressors, people go, oh, so you do like slurs, right? And he goes, well, only against fascists. So then fascists go, right, I love a slur too. And then they all end up just being a bunch of guys who use slurs. You know what I'm saying? So I hear you. I've been with you. I've absolutely been in that position too, where I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to go after this woman. I'm going to go after this person. I'm going to do this because, again, you have to spend years unlearning to really come to the true liberation, the true radical state, the true radical way of being, which I'm still, deconstructing every day. I don't think I'm a wise person. I do not think I'm a wise person, and I hope that I get to die a wise person, but who knows? I don't know. Maybe one day.
Left MAGA, Mormonism, Jake, all the cults that I was born into, because I was sick and tired of being kept in a constant state of artificial anger. Anger helped me recognize that something was wrong, but anger did not help me rebuild my life. You know what did? First of all, some kind, loving people on the other side who led me out of MAGA and Mormonism. And then curiosity, education, listening. Admitting I was part of the problem too. Meeting people I had once been taught to fear, learning to see other people as complicated, messy human beings who were a lot like me. That's the hard part. It's easy to say, I hate these people, they suck. It is much harder to learn how your local government works and get out there and do something about it. It's easy to march in a No Kings protest, go home, upload pictures, and feel like democracy has been saved. Marches and public solidarity matter, but a protest cannot be the end of our participation.
I think the reason that, everyone does something different. So I strongly believe in this. I agree with her, generally, that a protest cannot be the end of your activism. And I would say that you don't need to go to the protest and do this and do this and do this and do this. We live in a world where ideally none of us would ever have to be activists, right? Like in the most ideal world, no one would ever have to be an activist. And we would have all this free time not to go to a march on a weekend, but to barbecue with our friends and family, right? We don't live in that world. We live in a different world where we have a barbecue with our family and then one of our weekends is activism, or we do activism and then we go to work, or we do our hobbies. And then, because again, I understand that in an ideal, and this is why people, by the way, just do this, because you can't live, guys, I'm telling you right now, you can opt out. I'm giving you permission. You have one life on earth and then you'll die. If you want to opt out, you can opt out. If you want to ignore the news, never be an activist, never advocate for yourself, and just let the world fall, you can do that. You can go home every weekend and just go to the barbecue, and you do that. I'm not going to judge you. Because to be honest, girl, I don't know you, and the world's going to end. Everyone's going to be dead in 100 years. And if you do that, and respectfully, if you do that, and you shut yourself off, okay, if at any point when you're hitting those burgers on that grill and you flip it over and you think, man, why is the world the way it is? Why does traffic work the way it is? Man, my commute to work was crazy today. What's up with those potholes? It's right there. Now you're responsible, because now you have the idea of what that connection is to activism and not being an activist. Now you have this idea of why we advocate, why we care, because it's in your life. That pothole that you're annoyed at while you're flipping burgers, okay, that's connected to why we spend some of our weekends doing activism work. Because you can turn off your brain as much as you want, but I promise you, you will notice how your life is impacted by the policy around you. You will notice it in your everyday life. You will notice it when you're sick in the hospital and from flipping and eating all those carcinogens, okay, all that bacon. You'll notice it when you have heart problems in the hospital and your health insurance isn't covering your bills, and you'll say, damn, what's this about? It's about that thing that you decided to tune out and pretend didn't exist. And I promise you, you can die ignorant to the fact or why your hospital bill was so intense, or you can die ignorant to the fact of why your hospital visit was so hard, but there is a reason for it. There's a reason you have a pothole. There's a reason your health insurance sucks. There's a reason you ate bacon, even though it's a carcinogen. And there's a reason you didn't, there's a reason. So you can do it. I'm giving you permission. But if you in your daily life have that realization of, I wonder why that is the way that it is, or I'm annoyed today because of XYZ, well, now you know. There is a reason. And so what some of us are doing, what I'm doing, is going, hey, there's a reason for that, right? Okay, what is it? But I'm just not stopping there. So here's what happens, okay? We live in a world where I've had it. So let's say it's a linear spectrum, which we know it never is. Okay. So here you have these Republicans and you have these liberals and then you have these leftists and then you have everyone who knows that the real thing hasn't even been invented yet, right? Okay. So you have I've had it. I've had it lives here. Okay. I've had it. Okay. I'm just going to put I've. It doesn't really look like an I've, but there you go. Okay. So they go, oh my God, hey, why is my pothole suck? And why doesn't my public school have stuff? And where's my health care? Oh, they go, oh, Republicans. Okay, they're here. So they figured it out. I know you can barely see it, but here we go. Okay. And I'm saying for the leftists, they're like, hey, why the fuck are we fucking funding Israel? Oh shit, it's the liberals and it's the Republicans. Fuck. Okay. And then you've got everyone over here that's like, hey, why is humanity doing everything that it does? Okay. It's like, it's not even about the parties anymore, but it does make you realize like, oh shit, wait, Republicans are doing XYZ. Oh shit, liberals are doing XYZ. Oh shit, like everything came from something. The words we use, the way we dress, the way we exist, the homes we aspire to have, like, oh shit. But it's not a conspiracy. It's just how life happened. There's not a conspiracy that needs to exist for you to accept like, oh, life just happened this way. Okay, so if life just happened this way, what else is there to know about how life happened this way? An infinity amount of information exists in the universe. We will never uncover it all before we die. So my goal is to spend my life uncovering it, but understanding that it's not a conspiracy, that we don't know things. It is sort of a bummer a little bit that people don't recognize, I think, how much more they have to learn. And so when you have the I Have Had It podcast, what that does is it's cathartic enough that makes people feel like they uncovered enough, they left MAGA, or they realized Republicans suck. And here is the place where I'm going to land. And I'm saying, but what if you went further? I'm saying, what if you realized I've had it to some people is MAGA? Not that it's literally MAGA, but to certain people, I've had it basically might as well be MAGA, because once you realize there's so much more after that, you're like, damn, why did I even get stuck here? That's all I'm saying, is that I've had it is a different version of progressive compared to MAGA and reductive compared to leftist, and reductive compared, you know what I'm saying, right? Chad says two sides of the same coin. No. Don't be, okay, hold on. That is a centrist take. A centrist think that the Republicans and I've had it are the two sides of the same coin. We're all on the same coin. We all live on the coin, right? So it can't be two sides of the same coin unless we're being very, very reductive. The thing I'm not trying to say it's two sides of the same coin. So we have a coin. No, we have planet Earth, which is the coin. Coin Earth. Okay? And people go, oh, the planet's like this. It's divided into two. No, it's divided into billions. And we're all in existence to one another in relationship to the bubbles. But there's billions of people with billions of different variations of being. And so like two sides of the same coin is reductive marketing done by politicians, done by faux philosophers who have taught us to think this way, like, oh, both sides have a point. Two sides of the same coin. Well, everybody has everyone has a side. It's not the two sides of the same coin. It's more linear, but also we're all together on the same planet. So again, Republicans, and I've had it. Sure, I've had it way better than Republicans. Also, not the end goal, though. There is more. And if there is more, then what do we do with this? Well, it plays a role, but hopefully the role doesn't need to exist anymore. Hopefully in the future, we don't need an I've had it. In the same way that one day you won't need me. You know? Like one day the world shouldn't need me, but it probably will. In the same way that it will probably need an I've had it. And that is why the world is a reflection of us as a whole, because why in the world would we still need philosophers talking about why? And why in the world would we still need I've had it talking about how Republicans suck? And that's because we still go in cycles. Every baby that's born into the universe has to go through their own cycle of deconstruction. No matter how perfect you raise your babies, they can still make decisions to be white supremacists or rapists or anything else. And that's why humans are animals on a planet, because at the end of the day, like, you would think if we had all this free will and we were all this smart, then we certainly wouldn't be in our position. But we obviously must be, you know what I mean? Like, this must be it. And if this is it, then there's something we can do about it. If you radically accept humanity for what it is and our life on earth for what it is, and you realize we're not the center of the universe, it actually allows you to be kinder and more compassionate. And the problem is we're not doing that, you know? And I also think this goes back to forgiveness, you know? Like when we talk about forgiveness, we can forgive people and they can go find redemption with different communities. I think people sometimes think accountability makes you go back to the life you had before. No. And it doesn't mean we'll build community with, like, this lady here. Look, I really like this video and everything, but I'm not interested in being her friend. Like, I don't know who she is. I don't know anything about her. But just because I liked this video doesn't mean I'm about to email her and be like, yo, besties, I don't know her. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even subscribing. This video did not make me subscribe to her because her video doesn't feel like the type of content that's for me. I'm a queer, West Asian, gender nonconformist, gender fluid person. Like, I'm not interested. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm moving more radical in my way of being. I'm not gonna build, you know what I'm saying? She's invited to my gathering, but maybe I wouldn't go to hers. Does that kind of make sense? Because, like, why am I gonna, it feels a little bit like going backwards. Why would I go backwards? I'm trying to move forward with the people who are already moving forward. So yeah, her deconstruction journey is also very important, where like people need this content. But look, she has an American flag in the background. Do you know what I'm saying? We are not the same. You will not see an American flag in my background. Okay, do we understand what I'm trying to say? This lady, she's very nice, she's a very nice lady, but we have an American flag in the background. What are we talking about? You are not going to see me rep an American flag.
The patient, nor can listening to podcasts or making podcasts of our own. The hard and very boring work that actually matters happens afterward. And I know what you're thinking before you even write this comment. Jenny, that sounds really boring compared to a viral rant. And you're right. Our brains are so addicted to dopamine that when we talk about things like actually fixing the problems, we zone out. But feminism wasn't built on viral rants. It was built on women in living rooms, organizing childcare, funding healthcare, and showing up at local board meetings. And I'm afraid that all of us, including me, have traded that powerful work for the quick hit of a mean comment on a rage-baity video. And we're losing our power because of that. Here's what we should be doing. Instead of just feeding our daily rage addictions, we should be organizing, calling representatives, supporting candidates in primaries. Even if you just donate a few dollars to a good local politician, we should be sitting down with a personal financial planner. Our personal finances are very important in the world. Showing up at city council and board meetings, protecting.
Okay. Chat says 2 things. Would you reclaim the flag? No, I think reclaiming the United States flag is like reclaiming a symbol of genocide. So I'm not interested. Right? I don't think you can reclaim a symbol of genocide. So I don't think you can reclaim the American flag. But you know, because we're talking about the inception of this country, right? Chet says there are levels. Telling the person that an American flag is strange and immoral would lead to an hour-long argument about how Lincoln freed the slaves. Yeah, except he didn't free the slaves, right? Except he didn't free the slaves in the way that we're taught. So that should lead to an hour-long conversation about how Lincoln didn't do shit. You know what I mean? How Lincoln was a piece of shit. You know what I mean? Because we gave him all of this fucking historical credit, right? So maybe that should be the conversation that comes up. But that's the problem with owning this flag, is like all I see is genocide when I look at this flag. You know, I'm not saying the country though. I don't feel that way when I think of America as a people. I think of that way when I think of the flag, the colors, when I think like the red, white, and blue, when I think about the government, when I think about its institution. So, you know, I don't think that way when I think about Americans, peoples, right? It's just, I think, again, systems versus people. The American flag is a representation not of the people, but of the system. The illusion is that it represents the people. I think the reality, though, is that it represents the system.
Vulnerable neighbors, especially kids and single moms. I do everything that I can to support moms around me. And we should be building coalitions with imperfect people. Most of the real work happens off camera when nobody is applauding and there is no viral clip at the end and no YouTube paycheck. I just think that we can treat all people with basic dignity. And that doesn't mean tolerating abuse or pretending that every opinion is equally valid. It doesn't mean inviting fascists to coffee and hoping that a nice latte changes their minds. It means refusing to let hatred turn us into the type of people that we claim to oppose. And we saw this in...
Oh, I just want to say too, I used to have an emotional relationship with the American flag. When I was a conservative, I was very patriotic. And at this stage in my life, I just have no like emotionality to the flag. I mean, don't get me wrong. Does a girl cry a little bit when Whitney Houston, you know, comes on singing the national anthem? For sure. But I don't have any emotional tie to the flag. I'm much more sensitive about queer flags. Like I feel much more related. Like that's my flag right there. Like the flag I have on my channel, that's my flag. You know, that's the flag that matters to me. But I think if you have an emotional, personal relationship to the flag, I think that can be very valid.
Real life with Michelle Obama's speech at the dedication of the Obama Presidential Library. I'll link that in the comments. What she said changed me. Michelle Obama has always been when they go.
Look, I love me and Michelle Obama. There's something so fascinating and amazing about Michelle, but at the same time, respectfully, you know what I mean? Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, I get it. Look, I don't know what it is about Michelle. She's smart and alluring and beautiful. And just, there's so many things about her that make me go like, I love this woman. And then there's a part of me that like, respectfully though, you know? And so this love of Michelle Obama in this video is also telling to me, where I hear her and I do think they go low, we go high. But I think that with everything always, in the sense that I can go low because like it's not a part of my character. But when I do go low, I feel ashamed. This goes back to the conversation we had earlier. You cannot shame me for going low. I will shame myself. Thank you very much. Because me feeling ashamed for not doing what I was supposed to do is different than you trying to shame me because you think you're better than me. But okay. So I think her love of Michelle is just an indication. Like, I think people have, with this recent, building going up and this recent dedication to the Obamas, have sort of forgotten all of the issues about Barack Obama's presidency. And at the same time, like, I will not have a Republican slander Barack Obama to my face.
Low, we go high type of woman. We can't stay stuck in victim mode 24 hours a day. At some point, we have to put on our big girl panties and get out there and actually change something. This is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Anger is fuel, but it is not a vehicle. Anger can alert us to injustice. It can push us out of dangerous systems. Anger can give us the courage to say enough. But if we never turn that anger into disciplined action, we are just standing in our driveway, lighting gasoline on fire. I don't need another podcast to tell me who to hate today, just so that I can walk into Trader Joe's feeling pissed off at the world. And I don't think that you do either. And I don't need feminism packaged as a permanent middle school cafeteria fight. I want serious conversations about how we actually improve public education while respecting the complicated realities of families. I want to know how we protect homeschooled children without dehumanizing them or their parents. I want solutions, organizing. I want courage that lasts longer than a comment section. So yes, I've unfollowed the I've Had It podcast, not because I like the Republicans or MAGA or Donald Trump, but because I worked really hard to escape one culture of rage, anger, scapegoating, and fear. And I will not voluntarily move into a new one just because the new people supposedly have the correct enemies. Let me tell you some things that I've had it with. I've had it with outrage pretending to be activism. I've had it with cruelty pretending to be comedy. I've had it with scapegoating for profit. And I've had it with all of us staying permanently pissed off while the people in power continue to do exactly what they want to do. Be angry, but then learn something, build something, protect someone.
Again, be angry, but feed your community, right? Be so angry for the world, you care for the world.
Organize something, change something. Run for office, do something, because anger may get our attention, but only doing something does something. My granddad used to say, the only way to do it is to do it. Jenny, you can't just sit in bed thinking about that new cheerleading routine that you got to do. The only way to do it is to do it. Get out of bed and get on it. Anyway, love you, Jen and Pumps. I also love my inner peace, and I love other humans and value all.
Okay. So look, great message overall. Like I said, will I be subscribing? No. But will I understand the message? Do I think we come from similar bubbles in a sense? Sure. Do I see a lot of good here? Absolutely. I would love if I had it. Got a little humility, because I do think they come off very like arrogant and angry, and that combination is really difficult to contend with. And again, this goes back to the beginning of this whole thing with this gentleman here who said, just a reminder that transitioning did make me happy, because transition was just a different part of my journey. Like, at the end of the day, getting money, transitioning, doing all these things, they're not the key to our joy. They're a part of the path of getting there. And I think sometimes we've been sold that if we just go to college and get a job, if we just buy a house, if we just get married, if we just transition, if we just do this, we'll be happy. Well, what if I do all those things and I'm still not happy? Because happiness is an emotion, it's temporary. What you're really looking for is joy. And joy comes from a deep embodiment, a release of hateful and bigoted thoughts. It comes from a life well lived, and it comes from the humility and wisdom to realize that we can't have all the answers, but as a community, we can certainly discover them together. And I just think right now we're so busy being individually angry that we're more angry at the world than we are for the world. And so instead of feeding our community, we are singular angry people that are just busy being mad at it. We're the grumpy old men sitting at his stoop and yelling at the children. And I'm just sitting here like, who has time for that? Well, apparently a lot of people. So again, in my own personal life, I don't have time to be angry at the world. I'm trying to be busy being angry for it. And so that is what the message I'm getting from both of these pieces of content is, that there's so much more to living life. And I think you have to really live it, like really live it in the most present. And I just think sometimes a lot of this content that has good intention, I think it's a distraction from really living in the most present of your life, you know? And also, just one last note on the privilege take. Yeah, we're all privileged, but just a reminder, like, what's more privileged than being like, oh my God, somebody somewhere else is suffering and I'm sitting here loving my life. Oh my God, like, I can't even be happy because somebody somewhere else is suffering. I will hurt myself too so I can suffer. What's more privileged than inflicting suffering on yourself so you can too be a suffering person? Like, that's the whole point of like co-opting suffering, is like you're feeling left out because you're not suffering like the rest. And so you're like, I'm going to hurt myself so I'm also suffering. You know, it's like, what a privilege to purposely suffer. You know what I'm saying, girl? Come on now.